Members of the parliament discussed ways to improve living conditions and services standards. Al-Qaeda claims responsibility for Baghdad's bloody attacks yesterday, and al-Maliki considered them calls for hatred. Larijani says the American proposal is a new trick from Washington. Good afternoon and welcome to News in English and from the Syrian Arab Television in Damascus. The People's Assembly continued its first session on the third ordinary round. Members of the cabinet attended also the session. Assembly members discussed the economic situation and the urgent files demanding a timetable to implement them. Members of the parliament considered that national interest is a collective responsibility, pointing out that it requires cooperation among different parties. They asserted that the ministers should have creative ideas for the future and they should keep away from the routine and the traditional methods in order to resolve the crisis. Members of the Assembly emphasized that serious dialogue should start from the smallest village and shouldn't exclude anyone. In field developments and in Homs countryside, units of the Syrian Arab Army carried out a series of successful operations against terrorist gatherings, killing many of them, injuring several others and destroying their vehicles in Abil, Taldaw and Kifr. Among the terrorists killed, there was Hussam Abu al-Azam, leader of a terrorist group linked to Al-Nusra Front. Syrian Arab Army also destroyed many terrorist hideouts, including rocket launchers and automatic snipers in these hideouts that the terrorists had used to attack residents in several areas of Homs countryside. The Russian Foreign Ministry announced that the questions concerning the solution of the crisis in Syria were foremost among the subjects of the telephone conversation between the Russian and American foreign ministers. The ministry said in a statement that Sergei Lavrov discussed with his American counterpart, John Kerry, the necessity of ending violence by all parties and starting dialogue between the government and the opposition. The Russian Ministry of Emergencies announced its intention to send 2 planes carrying humanitarian assistance to Syria weighing 44 tons. The spokeswoman of the ministry pointed out that the 2 planes may carry Russian citizens from Syria if they wished to go home. The terrorist organization that belongs to Al-Qaeda in Iraq admitted responsibility for the series of terrorist attacks in Baghdad that led to the death of 37 victims and the wounding of more than 100 others. The Iraqi head of government, Nour al-Maliki, described the explosions as calls to increase instigation and hatred, thus inviting similar violent reactions. He pointed out that these acts exposed the evil plot against the Iraqis, their security and their stability. He called for standing together to confront these dangers. In Egypt, dozens of demonstrators suffered cases of suffocation and many of them, including one child, fell on the ground during clashes with the security forces in Al-Gharbiyya province. There was information about differences inside the Salafi Noor party, one of whose leaders announced his resignation today from the consultative body of President Morsi. Dr. Bassam al-Zarqa and his resignation that his resignation was a reaction to the dismissal of Khalid Alamuddin, the president's advisor on environmental affairs. On the other hand, the Committee of Freedom in the Egyptian Bar Association rejected the plan of the Muslim Brotherhood to control the basic positions in the state, particularly in the fields of judiciary and internal affairs. Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad described the relations between his country and Kuwait as brotherly and deep. Nejad's statement came following his meeting with the Deputy Minister of the Kuwaiti Emir's Affairs, Sheikh Ali Al-Jarrah Al-Sabah in Tehran. The Iranian President expressed hope that Asian meetings would contribute in boosting solidarity and in strengthening relations between countries of the region. Also in Tehran, head of the Iranian Shura Council, Ali Larijani, said that the Americans are making a new trick by proposing dialogue with Iran. Larijani pointed out that Iran succeeded in developing peaceful nuclear technology. He added that the Americans wanted to end the Palestinian issue and to go out of Afghanistan in order to target Iran. Going to Venezuela, where Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez came back to Caracas after cancer treatment and after more than 2 months of the surgical operation he had in Cuba. Chavez thanked the Venezuelan citizens who expressed concern over his health condition. Tens of thousands of protesters gathered in Washington, calling on the U.S. President Barack Obama to reject the controversial Keystone XL oil pipeline proposal and to honor his inauguration pledge to act on climate change. Protesters from 30 states marched around the nearby White House area, calling to shut down the Keystone pipeline. Protesters said that approving the pipeline, which would transport crude oil from oil sands of northern Alberta to refineries and ports in Texas, would be akin to lighting a carbon bomb that could cause irreplaceable harm to climate. More details on our website www.syriaonline.sy. After the break, a tour to inspect services in Damascus countryside and the citrus production in Syria. All that and more in our economic news.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Governor of Damascus countryside looked into the work mechanisms in the Health Directorate of Damascus countryside. He also had some discussions with the stakeholders regarding the health centers and the hospitals' requirements, mainly ambulances, as well as providing the needed medication. Also, as a result of the pressure on the bakeries of Damascus countryside, the governor visited the new bakery of Dahiyat Qadsiya to check on the work mechanisms in serving the area. Moreover, he observed the mechanisms of distributing bread to citizens, demanding that the bakeries should work throughout the day with a production capacity of about 15 tons. The chairman of the Farmers Union in Latakia called for carrying out the necessary steps for marketing the citrus, as its production was estimated this season at about 800 tons. He also indicated the union's efforts made to market the crops, while the chairman of the Agricultural Association producing citrus held a meeting with the General Establishment for Marketing, during which they discussed the amount of citrus that can be marketed, in addition to the crops' conditions and their prices. Moreover, they asserted taking into account the current crisis in the country and the high transportation costs. The Texas spot oil fell for the second day, extending the biggest drop in 2 weeks. While the Brent futures advanced, crude oil also declined as much as 0.4% after the Federal Reserve issued data that shows a shrink in the industrial production. The US futures were little changed while the Asian shares rose. The European stocks fell for a third day as some companies, including Carlsberg, missed the earnings estimates. The Japanese shares rallied as the Nikkei index rose by about 1.4%. In the local markets, the 21-carat gold reached 4,350 Syrian pounds today, with 50 Syrian pounds raise, as the 18-carat gold stilled at 3,729 Syrian pounds. In related news, the Jewelleries Association in Damascus set the price of the Rashadiyya coin at 32,000 Syrian pounds and in the English coin at 35,800 Syrian pounds. The yen fell, extending losses that have made it the worst performing major currency during the past 3 months, after the group of 20 nations refrained from censoring the Japanese policies about the decline. The Japanese currency approached the weakest level since May 2010 against the US dollar. Ladies and gentlemen, this was our economic news for today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.